Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now, as you may have heard, Prince Andrew's pal and wealthy financier and child predator, Jeffrey Epstein, took his own life by hanging in the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan in the early hours of Saturday morning. Now, just mere weeks ago, Epstein tried to take his own life and he failed. But at that point, he was placed on suicide watch, which involves round-the-clock surveillance. And it includes bright lighting to ensure that the inmate is unable to harm themselves. And proper suicide watch not only ensures that the inmate has nothing to hang himself with or harm himself with, but there's nothing in the room with which the inmate can harm themselves. And there's nothing in the room from which, in this case, the inmate can hang himself. Why am I going into all of this? Well, Jeffrey Epstein was not on suicide watch at the time of his death, because it turns out that even in jail, even as a child predator, these people have privileges. He was able to convince jail officials that he was no longer a danger to himself and therefore allowed to come off suicide watch, which to me makes absolutely no sense. Now, as I learn about all of this stuff along with everyone else, the only thing I can think about is the rich and the powerful men who may now never face justice because the key witness in this whole trial, Jeffrey Epstein, was allowed to, and I'd say even encouraged to, kill himself. Certainly, there was no one stopping him. Some of the rich men being former President Clinton and the current President Trump, former governors, former senators, attorneys, very powerful men, very well-connected men. And then there's Prince Andrew, Epstein's old pal. He's named many times in the documents that were made public the day before Epstein died. Now, for the purposes of this channel, Prince Andrew is who I'm going to focus on, and specifically as it relates to the hypocrisy we find in the British media. Now, yesterday, I noticed on my Twitter moments that a full 100,000 people were talking about Prince Andrew in the wake of Epstein's death. Can I just say that no one talks about Prince Andrew ever, unless it's about something like this? But everybody was talking about him yesterday. Why? Because even though his friend Jeffrey killed himself, it doesn't mean that we get to forget about the accusations made against Prince Andrew. And it doesn't mean that any of what we now know goes away. Now, let me go back for a minute. Epstein was a human trafficker. He and his disgusting associates waited outside of girls' high schools in order to recruit them. We know that dozens of women say Epstein targeted them when they were young and vulnerable, often poor, and generally in their teens or early 20s, abusing them and then getting them to recruit other girls into this perverted pyramid scheme. And these girls say their lives were ruined by this man. And he preyed on girls who were in a bad way, girls who were basically homeless, and girls he thought that no one would listen to. And in a way, he was right. Until now. All the while, wealthy, powerful, and highly educated individuals like Prince Andrew, the Queen's son, continued to attend parties with him and treating him like a friend, ignoring evidence of any abuse taking place, and in many cases, taking part in the abuse. Now, on Friday, August 9th, unsealed court documents revealed new details in the case, which included allegations by a woman that said she was forced by Epstein to have sexual intercourse with Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, often at Epstein's Upper East Side mansion in New York City. And the Duke denied the allegation, of course, but then at 7:30 on Saturday morning, Epstein was found dead in his cell, apparently hanging himself. I'm not saying those two things are directly related, but my stomach turned just seeing this disgusting individual grinning like a fox next to the Queen as if he knew he got away with something. And instead of the tabloid media reporting on that, they're revisiting old stories that were non-stories when they first reported on them. Stories about Harry and Meghan, of course. such as Harry read Will and Kate the Riot Act because they didn't support Meghan before the wedding, an event that happened over a year ago. And oh look, Harry rode a big gas-guzzling boat to the Google Green Summit, an event that happened, again, weeks ago. This is where it gets tricky. The Andrew story is one that would give them the most possible profit, and I'm talking about the press, in the wake of Epstein's suicide. But here they are, picking and rehashing the low-profit Harry and Meghan stories. These specific stories are low profit because they're old, but they're rehashing those because what does it mean? That means that they can stay in the family's good graces. So all of a sudden it's profits be damned. That's what makes it odd. This is a time where we all need to be paying attention to how this whole operation works. And this is a time where so many people of all persuasions are saying everyone needs to pay attention to how these girls were violated and victimized, and how the rich and the powerful and the well-connected continuously get away with it. And while we shouldn't let them get away with it anymore, well, what is the British press doing? They're completely turning away from it, and they're doing it deliberately. And again, they're using Harry and Meghan as the tools for that. So let me jog your memory for a second. When Epstein first got arrested, again, the British media began their anti-Meghan campaign. That's when we saw that around Wimbledon, they were coming down on Meghan for being a quote-unquote diva. Many people believe that that was led by the royal family. And many people believe it was a smear campaign spearheaded by Andrew, in the same way the smear campaign against Meghan took place around the same time that the William and Rose rumors started to sprout up. This has become their routine. Well, now that Epstein is dead and the attention is squarely on his fellow predators and associates, the British press has once again directed attention away from the real story and putting attention onto Harry and Meghan, never truly holding Andrew's feet to the fire. And understand, it didn't used to be this way. The press used to go in on Prince Andrew for these things, these specific things that I'm talking about, because this is an almost decade-old story. Andrew has been associated with this man for a long, long time. They were close friends. Don't let anybody try to convince you otherwise. I don't care how the British media, in conjunction with the British family, tried to convince folks that the relationship ended in 2011, 2010. They were best friends, if you ask me. They were good buddies. They were good, close pals. But when Meghan showed up, certain factions of the press now all of a sudden protect Andrew by not reporting on his associations with a convicted child predator and sex offender, a registered sex offender.
But it certainly doesn't look very good for someone of Prince Andrew's notoriety to be socializing with a convicted sexual predator. I mean, this is a man who pled guilty to procuring an underage girl for prostitution. And Prince Andrew is socializing with this man, even after he's pled guilty. It just does not look good. It's salacious, it's unfortunate, and people should be questioning just exactly the extent of that relationship. And he should be answering for why he's friends with this type of a man.
The second son of Queen Elizabeth is not charged in the ongoing federal lawsuit, but it puts him right in the middle of an alleged sexual abuse ring from 1999 to 2002 that was allegedly run by international financier Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein pleaded guilty to solicitation of prostitution. In 2008, he was sentenced to 18 months behind bars. He served 13 months. Epstein was known to hobnob with the rich and famous, including Prince Andrew. When the two were spotted walking in Central Park in 2011 after Epstein had become a registered sex offender, the British press went crazy.
You're an embarrassment, sir. Prince Andrew, you're resigning.
His friendship cost Prince Andrew his job as the UK trade representative. Now the alleged victims are suing the US government, saying their rights had been violated in the Epstein plea deal. and at least one victim has named Prince Andrew by name. Jane Doe number 3 was forced to have sexual relations with this prince when she was a minor in 3 separate geographical locations: in London, New York, and on Epstein's private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
And his association with the Queen, though she is his mother, it taints the whole royal family because she is the head of it. And if I was a queen, you couldn't catch me sitting next to that guy. I don't care if he is my son, not in a million years. Now, I'm no royalist, but even I can see that he does more damage than good. There are people who call for the abolishment of the royal family. And Andrew, right now, he's definitely helping their case. While there are worse things that the royal family has been associated with, this is just one more straw on the camel's back. And I hope Harry and Meghan keep their distance from this man and from Sarah Ferguson. Point blank, period. Now, one thing that keeps me hopeful is that Andrew cannot get away from the court of public opinion. Many people on Twitter are simply letting him have it, and most of them aren't even royal watchers. And if you look at the latest post on his official Twitter at the Duke of York, you'll find that literally hundreds of people commenting and trolling the account for various reasons, primarily because they didn't want him to escape the ridicule that he deserves. And it is my hope that Epstein's ghost, Epstein's deeds, and Andrew's participation in this whole sick scheme follows him around for the rest of his life like a scarlet letter, because he deserves nothing less. My opinion of him personally is so low. And thankfully, people are beginning to more frequently call out the hypocrisy of the press when it comes to their coverage of Meghan versus their coverage of anybody else. Now people are looking more specifically at the timing and seeing how the British press is basically playing this game of dodgeball, where they're trying to avoid certain stories just so they can keep their relationship with the royal family on good terms, because that's what it seems like for me. But you get the sense that people in general, they feel cheated by how easy Epstein got off with his suicide. They've seen him get off before, and each time that he gets off, the victims, they get nothing. They get no justice. And they're determined to not let his associates and co-conspirators get off as easy. I know one thing, people won't soon forget it. And those women, now that they don't have to fear Epstein anymore, they'll come out of hiding and expose those monsters that violated them. And I can't wait for Andrew to have his day. At the very minimum, he should become a pariah in the royal family and in British society. There should be a widespread rebuke of the Duke, because that's exactly what he deserves, at minimum. Tell me what you guys think about this video in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, and share if you wish, and I will catch you guys on the next one.